Customer base. Let's talk about this for a second. Why is a business in business?
Customers.
Yeah, for customers, and why?
To make money.
To make money. That's why a business is in business. And you cannot make money unless your business has customers. But sometimes businesses tend to put out things that are kind of dangerous. So, you know about the Consumer Product Safety Commission. These people recall millions of toys every year, especially toys. And just the FYI, child's car seats now have expiration dates on them. And I'm driving around with an expired car seat in my wife's car. Don't tell anybody about that. I mean, it's expensive. It's not that expired. It expired like a year ago. But the problem with the CPSC is they're stretched too thin to guard against all dangers. I mean, we've had tons and tons of products come into the country all the time on a regular basis. And some of those products are dangerous, but you can't control everything with a government agency that has spread that thin. So a lot of times, I mean, we still got dangerous stuff in society. A lot of times the parents like myself will rely on consumer groups, civil justice system. Our kid gets hurt on a Grey Coat stroller, then we're going to sue them to cover our medical expenses. Medicine's expensive. Trip to the emergency room. Just setting foot in the emergency room here in Nacogdoches will cost you $3,500. And then when you ask them to itemize your bill and say, what did I receive for my $3,500? They refuse. It just says, oh, you went in the emergency room. That's $3,500. So don't go to the emergency room. I mean, unless you're definitely going to die. I would warn against emergency rooms because they're extremely corrupt and they're protected legally and they have teams of lawyers and you will never win against an emergency room if you go in there for anything. Just find a doctor or a clinic or something. Anyway, that's my emergency room rant. I'm getting off track here. But sometimes corporations are negligent and we have to bring them to justice so that they can stop being negligent and they can stop hurting people. And this few slides I'm going to talk about, these few toys I'm going to show you, I found them on a website called Take Justice Back. Take Justice Back is a consumer protection website. And all these deadly toys we're about to look at came from that website. So I've got I don't want to be in any sort of copyright violation. You guys are too young to remember this. I'm too young to remember this. This is the Austin Magic Pistol. It's like a ping pong ball gun, isn't it? That's what it is. I mean, it shoots ping pong. But check this out. In the 1950s, back when they didn't consider BB guns particularly dangerous, you might shoot your eye out if our Christmas stories are true. But it took something really special for a gun to stand out as dangerous for children. The Austin Magic Pistol managed to do that with its gas-powered combustion. And it used what the manufacturer called these magic crystals. You put these magic crystals in this gun, and these things are made out of a chemical called calcium carbide, which is a hazardous material itself. And when you mix water with the crystals, the thing would explode and fire a plastic ball across the yard. Let's see if I've got a video of it here.
At Chili's,
Oh, come on.
is now. Now that's
I was getting into that.
And now you can pay and go when you're ready. Now isn't that convenient? The
I
new
hate
lunch
Chili's.
offer. And Chili's lunch offer.
Chili's used to be reported to one of these agencies. This is dangerous food. All right, here we go. Austin Magic Pistol.
Check this out. What's that? We got this on eBay. It's called the Austin Magic Pistol. Magic Pistol. The Austin Magic Pistol. You take a ping pong ball and just kind of place it in there so that it kind of sticks. Works on magic crystals. Magic crystals. Magic crystals. Magic crystals go here in the back. You can't like very hard. And then all you need is a little bit of water or some spit to work, and then it fires. That's all. Come on.
I think that thing's pretty awesome, to be honest, but still possibly dangerous. I mean, did you guys play with these dangerous toys when you were a kid? Did anybody have lawn darts? That's before your time. All right. Well, probably dangerous, but check this out. They get even better. This is the Gilbert Uranium-238 Atomic Energy Lab. Check this out. Yeah, in the 50s, we were all about nuclear energy and stuff like that. Even in the 80s, when I grew up, I wanted to be a nuclear engineer. It didn't happen that way. This has been called the most elaborate atomic energy educational set ever created. It featured 4 uranium-bearing ore samples and a pre-formatted order so you could order even more of these uranium balls. A mail-order uranium-238. You hear that, folks? Mail-order bomb components. All right, even in the age when science sets routinely came with substances like potassium nitrate, which is a component of gunpowder, and sodium ferrocyanide, which is a deadly poison, the Atomic Energy Lab was absolutely glowing with danger. Okay. So what do you guys think? Have times changed? Have toys gotten safer? And plus, keep in mind that back in the 50s, people had different ideas of what danger was. You know, a broken arm, you know, that happens. These days, it's, you know, a traumatizing event, but people had different ideas of what dangerous was. I mean, and they were living in a world of mutually assured destruction. I mean, think about that for a minute. You guys seen Duck and Cover? The Duck and Cover movie. What does that tell us to do? Huh? If there's a nuclear, we look out the window and we see, like, I don't know, down like a mushroom cloud, and down that, we're supposed to get under our desk, right? I mean, more than likely the skin will be seared from our bones, but you know, they're probably pretty terrifying times to live in during the 50s, considering the proliferation of nuclear weapons. It was a scary time to live in the 80s as well. I mean, being a kid in the 80s was terrifying because, I mean, you guys saw Red Dawn, right? Red Dawn, Russians invading, scary stuff. You're 9 years old. Tell me this, how many of you guys had one of these growing up? The CSI Fingerprint Examination Kit. Any junior detective? You have one?
I have that. Sure.
Anybody else? Junior detectives. I got 2 junior detectives in my class. This thing was based on, of course, the CBS show CSI Crime Scene Investigation. And it let children look at fingerprints with a special powder and brushes that came with it. Is that pretty much how it worked? Would you like stick your finger on a glass and dust it with something? Is that kind of how it worked? And so then
and it had a little light that you like shine over it to like see it.
Oh, you had a light to shine over it. Yeah. Okay, all right. Well, check it out. The powder in question turned out to obtain up to 5% asbestos. What is asbestos? Sounds like a what?
Seasoning.
Like a seasoning. And probably tastes as best as it does. Yeah. They used it in insulation. What did they find out in the 70s or 80s? It's bad. Why is it bad? Because what? It causes illnesses. What kind of illnesses does it cause? Lung issues and cancer. It causes lung cancer. So buildings all over the United States still have asbestos in them. Different walls and the ceilings and insulation. And I think asbestos is flame retardant, and I think that was why it was originally used as some kind of insulation. So your house won't burn down, and you'll be able to enjoy living there longer while you drown in lung fluid. So what happened? The alarm was sounded in November 2007, but the toys makers, CBS Consumer Products, decided to leave it on the shelves for the Christmas season. That's right, they left it on the shelves for the Christmas season, fully aware that this thing has lung cancer and a bottle going on with it. So, but instead of waiting for the CPSC to negotiate a recall, a different organization got involved. This was the Asbestos Disease Awareness Organization, and they filed civil action to stop sales of the kit. But not, of course, before a couple of you guys got one for Christmas. All right, you guys may be a little bit, I don't know. You guys tell me. Anybody have this thing? The Hannah Montana Pop Star card game?
I remember
You're too old for that, or too young for that?
Yeah, old.
Too old. Okay, so this was a little bit before your time then. Well, check this out. After arsenic, lead is the second most deadly household toxin in existence. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that no toy contain more than 40 parts per million of lead. And this is why it was so alarming when the lab test revealed that the Pop Star game pictured here contained lead 75 times that level. It had 3,000 parts per million. But guess what? Hannah Montana stayed on the shelves. Why did it stay on the shelves? Well, they found out that the lead was in the vinyl in the cards and not the paint. And because it was in the vinyl, this was not covered by regulations. The regulations said, well, you can't have lead in paint, but apparently they didn't say anything about vinyl. So let's take a look at this real quick. Here we go. One left in stock. Check it out. We can still order these things.
No.
$6.95. Free shipping. Anybody looking for lead? Here we go. I kind of want to order some right now. $6.95. I think I've got some Amex points. No, I'll save that for later. We got to get to Ralph Nader, but I'm going to buy this for like my next class. I'm going to pass these around before I tell them what's in it.
That's horrible.
Yeah. But won't it be funny when they get to see the look on their faces? You guys remember some beads called aqueducts? Aqueducts, does that ring any bell? Guess what? Aqueducts are also known as the date rape drug.
Wait, what?
In 2007, they had millions of Chinese-made toys coming to the United States for kids. They were pulled from North America and Australia after scientists found that it contained a chemical that, when taken and combined apparently with hydrochloric acid in your stomach, it converts to a powerful date rape drug. 2 children in the U.S. and 3 in Australia were hospitalized after swallowing these beads. I can't remember which date rape drug it is. I think it was GBH. Is there a drug called GBH? Or is that a punk rock band?
It's an acronym.
It's an acronym? GBH?
In English, just read it. Like, you get charged for GBH,
Grievous bodily harm. Okay, maybe this is GHB then. Yeah. Or something like that. Or something, ketamine, something, I don't know. All right. So, knowing this requires PR people, especially when we've got dangerous toys that are allowing, like, have date rape drugs in them or that are blowing hands off or anything like that. My favorite was lawn darts. Does anybody know what a lawn dart is? Tell us about lawn darts.
Basically, it's a yard game where you have a target and you have a dart with a sharp point that you throw up and try to make it a target.
Yeah. You throw it and they stick in the ground and you try to land on a hoop or something. Let's see if we can find an image. I think these are banned. Actually, I remember them being on shelves.
Oh, those things.
Yeah, I mean, they're just big, giant, heavy darts. Let's see if we can find a lawn dart injury. Oh, that's a pornographic.
It does.
That's not a lawn dart right there, but imagine if that were a lawn dart, it would go all the way into like the prefrontal cortex or something. All right, looks like we got lots of jokes.
Oh.
We got more dangerous toys. But you get the idea. Lawn darts are pretty awesome. All right. So, when you got dangerous toys, you gotta have PR people to smooth things over. Now let's take a look at some of the objectives. Here's what you want to do: is in consumer relations. These are the objectives. They're the types of objectives that you need to be striving to achieve. First off, you need to keep your old customers. This is a serious principle. I want you guys to know this is a main principle. This is a major principle that you need to know for this class. Always want to keep your old customers because it's much more difficult to get new customers. I lived in this private housing thing. It was kind of like a dorm, but it wasn't a dorm when I was an undergrad. And these people spent all their time and all their efforts enticing new people to come move there. And what happened? The entire place turned totally ghetto. I mean, they're like people like working on their cars outside, and it was dirty, it was filthy, there was cigarette smoke filled the entire building, there was spilled liquor all over the place, pee and vomit in the elevator. It just became very disgusting. But they kept trying to entice new people because they couldn't figure out why they were losing people. It's much, and that place went out of business later, and they turned it into expensive lofts, like, I don't know, $1,500 a month lofts for college students. One-bedroom loft type things. But you also want to attract new customers. You want to keep your old customers. You don't want to run anybody off. You want to keep them happy. And you also want to attract new customers. A lot of times, keeping your old customers happy is critical for attracting new customers. And what theory is that? And what theory might apply to that scenario? It's the one I say every time I ask, what theory is that? Two-step flow, exactly. So you've got your old customers saying, yeah, they keep me happy. The people around them. So, I mean, this is a powerful way to get new customers. Other objectives include marketing new items, launching new products or services, promoting new things that are going to bring in more money to your company so that your company is able to survive, keep stockholders happy, produce new items, advance, things like that, grow, whatever. This is probably the #1 actual practical job done by people in PR who handle consumer relations, and that is expediting complaints handling. Why would that be important?
Keep your customers happy.
To keep your customers happy. And what happens if you don't? What happens if you have an issue or some kind of complaint?
They'll complain, they'll sue, they'll call the attention, they'll lose them, turn into.
Yeah, exactly. They will grow. What?
They'll turn into a problem.
They'll turn into a problem. And what happens when you have a problem?
Right.
It can turn into a crisis. So you want to expedite those complaints immediately. I'm going to tell you guys a story here in a few minutes about hurricane-flavored daiquiris. Also in consumer relations, you want to be concerned with reducing costs, getting costs down so that more people can buy more of your stuff. Don't tell me I lost the... Oh yeah, it's coming up. This is my favorite story to tell. Another trend going on in consumer relations is this. People are kind of taking, well, first we got the consumer movement from the 60s. But right now what's going on is when people get mad at a product, they go blog about it. They might go to message forums and news groups. There used to be email discussion forums, but these are kind of gone by the wayside. Anybody a member of a Yahoo group? We're talking like totally 2005 here. Or 2003 actually, back in the day, right? These kind of got by the wayside. I got kind of ticked off at my the Hyundai dealer. I felt like, well, they lied to me the entire time. And when I finally negotiated the price on my car, and I think I paid a little bit too much, but it didn't turn into what they were trying to turn it into, which was a bankruptcy. And it's like I say, hey, look, I've got this much to spend on a car. He's like, great, let's test drive this one. So we test drive it. And we get back, and by the time he gets through all the other crap, the tax, title, license, warranty, bumper to bumper, all these types of things, He's got a $24,000 car, and I said, hey, wait, I told you up front I couldn't afford that. Why did you lie to me? He's like, oh, let me go talk to the manager. So I had a bad experience. I mean, I got a great car on the deal, but North Freeway Hyundai in Spring, I got so mad about it, I got on Yelp. And I left them a very nasty review. Now, all these other sites out there, I know Yelp doesn't do this. Some of these sites let companies pay to have bad feedback removed. So that's why Hyundai Freeway or North Freeway Hyundai has so many good reviews on different sites, 5 stars. This is what they're doing is they're paying to have that negative feedback. Yelp doesn't do that. With Yelp, they've got like 2.5 out of 5 stars. And probably 2 of those stars come from shill accounts. It comes from them, getting on there, their PR people getting on there and making stuff up. I mean, it's a dirty world in the car industry. Anybody bought a car recently? Yeah. Yeah. I hope I don't have to buy one for a while. You guys look at a Siri. So what's missing from this list right here? This is all consumer-generated media. What's missing?
Social media.
What?
Social media.
Social media is missing. I'm looking for something else simpler. What'd you say?
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth is not really media, but it kind of goes along with these things. And with this, how about videos? Videos. We'll talk a little bit more about videos in a minute. Let's take a look at Siri. Somebody you guys use Siri? Who uses Siri? Everybody uses it. Oh man. You guys have like fantasies and imagine yourself talking to Siri?
I thought you
Talk to Siri? Does anybody talk to Siri like for conversation? Is that possible?
I'll be bored.
But what happens if Siri tried to talk to another Siri?
Yeah, I'm just going to my phone across the room.
Huh? Oh, you throw it across the room. I hate to be around for that. What happens if Siri tries to talk to Siri? I think it's hilarious. Let's find out. Oh, 45-second. Oh, I gotta get this thing installed in Firefox and make it stop doing these hard things.
Sorry, I missed that. It's no problem. Okay. I'm okay if you're okay. Are you? No comment. I don't know what you mean by comment. Okay, it's no big deal that you don't know. Would you like to speak?
Alright, so that doesn't quite work out. We're not quite there yet with artificial intelligence. Does anybody have any frustration talking with Siri?
Yeah, when you're looking for something and she doesn't hear you correctly, so she's going away to Wikipedia something you didn't say.
Wikipedia. In this car I bought from North Freeway Hyundai, it links up with my phone automatically when I get in the car. And sometimes something happens and the car starts asking me what I want to do. I think it's coming from the phone, but I can't tell if it's the phone or the car trying to talk to me. But anyway, so videos. People love making videos about different crazy stuff, different crazy things, uses they find for products. Some are like more useful, showing people how to, I don't know, like dig a carrot up with a shovel. I don't know, something like that. But people like making videos, and it's easy to do these days. Who else made a video in the past 24 hours? With their phone.
Like Snapchat.
Snapchat accounts, Vine, all these things. All right, so some of you have. Everybody's making videos, everybody's posting them online. And when it comes to products, part of consumer relations is to consider what people are out there doing with your product. All right, handling complaints. This is like probably the biggest part about consumer relations, the biggest aspect. But we know that only about 4% of consumers ever complain. This is one of the things. This is why I require people to fill out course evaluations at the end of the semester, because if I don't, there'll be like 1 or 2 of you guys that hates me and will just like tear me apart in the course review. The rest of you either don't care, or some of you might even like me. I don't know. But this is why in the course reviews you've got to like find ways to jack the stats so the dean doesn't come after you. So, anyway, 4%, tip of the iceberg. With 4% of people complaining, that means that there's a hell of a lot more people out there that are not happy. They're just keeping their mouths shut. So, again, you got to pay attention to angry customers, because again, what's this principle I keep repeating? If a customer has an issue, it can turn into a problem, which can then blossom into a crisis or a disaster. Exactly. In the old days, they had bedbug letters. People would write and say, well, I slept on your train last night, and I got eaten by bedbugs. And so people would write letters, and the company would write back and say, oh, we'll take care of you, or we want your business, so here's a free train ticket, or here's a 20% discount off your next stay in our hotel, things like that. In my misspent youth, I lived in Albuquerque during the 90s, actually, and I swear to God, whoever wrote Breaking Bad lived there in the 90s. I mean, that is so 90s. Albuquerque. I had this roommate who would write complaints like, oh, I found a hair in my can of beans. And they'd send like a case of beans and things like that. I mean, he was just kind of a con artist. I think he's in prison now, actually. But wow. He still owes me $60 for the phone bill. It's like 1994. I was making $4.25 an hour for minimum wage. Minimum wage is like very little back then. And that was my month to pay the phone bill. I gave him the money to go pay it, and he didn't pay it. So anyway, bedbug letters. But sometimes, you know, complaints are legitimate. Has anybody gotten something they're unhappy with and complained? Your burger wasn't done right, or what happened?
I went to McDonald's like on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really eat the buns, so I asked for like the chicken cinnamon burger without the bun.
Right.
Now you just put in a salad roll, but they just gave me the bun.
They gave you the bun.
Just the bun, yeah.
All right. Do you have gluten allergy, or you just don't eat bread, or?
No, I just ate bread, and they just gave me the bun, and I was just like, wow.
Okay. Well, so you complained about it. What else? Anybody else? Who else complained about something? What happened?
If I went to like a restaurant and the food isn't cooked all the way, I'll say like it's not done. But some people think that's too much. Or like my friends are like, oh, like those like people that always like complain. I'm like, but if I get food poisoning, it doesn't make sense. So I don't know. I always, because I feel like if they find that them slide with me, they'll do it to everybody else.
Okay.
Oh, that's just my opinion.
All right, well, I mean, you're paying money for it, so you have an expectation. You're kind of entitled to having the thing done like it's supposed to be done. And so, here's what happened. Here's my story. What happened? All right, so I go to Walmart, and I got me a daiquiri, and it was pretty vile actually. It was supposed to be watermelon flavored. Anyway, here, I'll read this out to you. So, well, I got mad and I contacted the company, and I was hoping I could like upload photos of it because it didn't look like it was supposed to look on the package. It tasted exactly like burnt caramel, kind of burnt sugar. So here's what I told them. I said, yesterday I bought a watermelon flavored Cordina margarita pouch at the Walmart in Nacogdoches, Texas. At first, I was surprised that it was a yellowish off-white color. It looked nothing like the red drink in the photo on the pouch. Then when I tasted it, I was horrified. It had a burnt caramel flavor. It smelled like someone left some honey in a pan on the stove and forgot about it. I know what this smells like because I recently burned some candy on the stove. I've generally been satisfied with the products in the past, but this was definitely a bad pouch. There's still some left in the pouch. I'd be happy to send it to you if you need to analyze it. Also, I have a couple of photos of the yellow liquid, but it doesn't look like your contact options allow me to upload them. But I'd really like to give us a refund for the $2 I paid for it. Thanks for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, Bill Madison.
Did they pay you $2?
I'm getting to that. Did anybody have these before?
No, not yet. Is this like the grown-up version of the Capri Sun?
Yeah, that's what it is. It's a frozen Capri Sun, exactly. Some of these are pretty good. This is actually one of my favorite brands of these things. I mean, these are pretty much, that much sugar is just, you can only like drink much harder to drunk. You can drink like 2 or 3. They cause brain freeze, and I don't know, it works when we don't have like a drive-through daiquiri place here in Nacogdoches. Anybody been to a drive-through daiquiri place? Yeah, we know what those are. We like those. They're kind of a second-rate substitute. All right, so I send them this email, right? And what happens? Minutes later, the owner gets back to me. He says, Philip, I'm very sorry for your experience with the watermelon. In our watermelon, we do not use artificial flavors, which make it tough to keep the color of the product after 6 months. There should be a code on the cap. Can you provide me to check if the product was out of code? Also, do you have a receipt showing proof of purchase? I'd like to make this up to you. Craig Cordes, co-founder. All right, so what happens later? 3 days later, I get 2 hurricane pouches in the mail. The hurricane is the best flavor of all those things, actually. I'm a big fan of the hurricane. Well, I mean, as big a fan as I can be of something I'm not really a fan of. That makes sense. So, and I would like to add, I probably shouldn't be telling you guys this, but they didn't even card me over the internet. All right, so this is just a good example of quick consumer complaints handling. Yes?
So are Bedbug Letters from the company, or is it the complaint from the customer?
That's a good question. I think they're the complaints from the companies dealt with Bedbug Letters from consumers.
Okay.
I believe that's how it works. Check the Untitled book. I haven't read that chapter in a while, so I need to probably brush up on it. But I believe that's what the companies call them, where they're sending us Bedbug Letters. And so we got to respond with, these form letters that we send out when other people complain about bed bugs. But I don't know, this wasn't really like that. This looked like a personally crafted response, if that makes sense. So it's not a form letter.
So was it expired, or was it just a bad?
I don't know if those things have an expiration date. They might. I couldn't tell. The cap had a number on it, but I remember I couldn't tell the date from the cap. So I don't know. The number may indicate date, but it's not to a normal person that doesn't know their coding. All right, let's take a look at the consumer movement. This is big stuff right here. We talked about The Jungle during our review here a few minutes ago. The Jungle is a book that revealed the scandalous conditions in the meatpacking industry, the rat feces and the hair and the ground up things that shouldn't be ground up in the meat. And it revolted people. It was disgusting. And so, this is kind of the root of it. So they passed legislation to basically regulate meat production. Let's take a look at Ralph Nader. Ralph Nader, I think I've got a video of him. This guy's famous for suing General Motors over auto safety issues. Back in the good old days, I think we already talked about like old cars, if you slam your finger in the door, it like shatter it. And now if you slam it in a Hyundai door, it will bounce off it. The cars are dangerous years ago, and a lot of times, like when people would get in a head-on collision, what would happen is the steering wheel would break off the steering column, and the steering column would go impaled through somebody. You guys may have seen high school videos about bloody death and mess on the highway. Anybody have those in driver's ed? Had some good ones? Does anybody remember Beavis and Butthead? Did you guys see where they took driver's ed? Oh man, go Google that. Go look that up on YouTube. That is the most hilarious episode of all. Beavis and Butthead. And the one where he gets stuck in a pipe too. I like that one. In the 1960s and 1970s, the baby boomers became of age. It'd be my parents. It'd probably be like your grandparent. My God, am I that old? You guys are old enough to be I am old enough to be your father. It's like disorienting to even think about that. I still feel young. The consumer movement strengthened in the 1960s and 70s when baby boomers were looking for causes to support. And Ralph Nader was sort of spearheaded a lot of this, and in his lawsuit against GM. This isn't good on Ralph Nader. GM did all kinds of crazy things to try to discredit Ralph Nader. It's like they sent prostitutes to try to seduce him. Let's see what Ralph Nader. We're not going to watch the whole thing because he's long-winded, but oh yeah, it's only 2 minutes.
The business is not so much opposed to Marxism or communism as they are to good old free enterprise, competitive business, and consumer sovereignty. That's what really gets them all worried. One can imagine what would happen if people could see what goes into their processed food products, or they could see what frauds so many of the so-called cleaners and cleaning agents are, and the kind of harm that's involved. Or they could see the enormous price fixing that goes on in the petroleum industry and in other industries that sell products to them. And the deliberate obfuscation or complexity of such services as insurance policies, so that the consumer can possibly compare one policy with another to see which is the best buy. The laws are very weak. The penalties are even weaker. Picture the scene. You can destroy a body of water like Lake Erie, and nothing happens to any of the polluters. You can destroy a beautiful spot on the west coast called the Santa Barbara offshore area, and there hasn't been any criminal prosecution or fine of the violators. There was recently a $1 million fine imposed on Chevron for the biggest oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. What is that? That's nothing. That's about an hour's gross revenue of the parent company. And it can be just passed on through the cartel in the form of higher consumer prices. Unless these fines go to the culpable officials, you're not going to get law acting as deterrents to future activity. And an oil spill is not just something that messes up beaches or kills a few seagulls. An oil spill, as we now know, due to testimony before the Senate a few weeks ago, breaks down almost immediately into carcinogenic components, which are consumed by fish and which can be passed through the food cycle. The oil spill also destroys almost every vestige of life on the seabed over an enormous area. And so it's a very serious ecological disaster, and one that does not repair itself in just a few months or even a few years. Not to indulge in commentary on partisan politics at all. But I think even a non-partisan would have to conclude that the Republicans in this country have yet to know how to spell the name consumer.
Not to engage in partisan politics. As much as I love Ralph Nader, he's kind of long-winded. The guy's a genius, and he's responsible for a lot of transformations that have occurred in our society over the past 40 or 50 years. Did I tell you guys about the time I met Ralph Nader, or I went to see Ralph Nader? It was awesome. He was running for president in 2008 against Obama. And Obama and McCain. And so he came to LSU to speak to students, and I was excited. I'm like, oh, woohoo, Ralph Nader. And so I went to the little auditorium to see him. It was an auditorium, I don't know, maybe fit about 200 people or so. It was about half full. And there was no metal detector. There was no strip search. There was no checking out who all was coming to see him. There was no nothing. This guy was a presidential candidate. And immediately I fell in love with him for that. I fell in love with him. I have a man crush on Ralph Nader. There's like a bro thing. Yeah, I don't know. But, so, I mean, and this was at a time of high security. I mean, it's like you get more scrutiny walking through an airport than you did going to see this presidential candidate. And I really, really appreciated that. And my claim to fame is that, in addition to knowing Kevin Fowler, being friends with Kevin Fowler's fiddle player, my claim to fame is that I got to stand up and ask Ralph Nader a question during his visit. And it was a question about immigration. The guy took like 2 hours to answer it. I mean, the guy will talk like me forever. So, Ralph Nader. Consumers should have rights. We should have the right to safety. We should have the right to be informed about what product we're buying. I mean, we should know, you know, the side effects of certain drugs. And if we have visual problems, we shouldn't have to read tiny, tiny fine print telling us what those side effects are. We should have the right to be able to choose between different products. This gets into monopolistic business practices. I mean, we should have the right to choose who our ISP is. Who has something besides Suddenlink? You have something besides Suddenlink?
No.
Who all has Suddenlink? This is a violation of our consumer rights.
I was wondering, what can we do about that? Just keep calling them?
I think there's like a crappy internet service out there.
Is that
what can we do about that? These are some good questions.
Because technically we're paying.
Well, we are paying, and prices are rising. If there's an easy solution, we're not going to find it today. But yeah, no,
they took VH1. They took a lot of channels, and then
they took your channels away. So they took MTV, they took ET Wells, Nickelodeon.
So good.
All right, so what do? They jack up your price, they take away your value. I don't know, I probably shouldn't say this. I'll just say this hypothetically. That there are ways around cable. BitTorrents, maybe. I don't know. And various other sites that might work. I understand BitTorrents doesn't work with the Tor browser. You guys know what the Tor browser is? And the Google Tor browser. This is, I feel like I might be like going into a gray area of discussion here. But the fact is, our rights have been violated. We do not have the right to choose our ISP, and the federal government, through various court cases, has enforced this. So, bye-bye rights. We also have the right to be heard. Suddenlink's heard us. Do they give a crap? No. So, like, if you guys hit the data caps, whenever you go over, like, I don't know, 50 gigabytes a month, like in Netflix, if you hit one, do they try to charge you? Or they threaten to charge you?
Like on your phone?
Like on the phone, but through Suddenlink.
Oh. No, I just get the on my phone.
Okay. Yeah, see, the phone started doing it. Suddenlink started doing it about a year ago. What this is a smash and grab. This is to hit the heavier users of media like Netflix, anything with videos, anything that causes a lot of data traffic. And there's absolutely no reason they should charge these caps. So that's my rant about Suddenlink. And let's see, just a couple other notes on this. We have the right to be protected from dangerous products. The right to be protected against fraudulent claims. We'll look at a couple organizations to take care of that. Misleading advertising, false advertising. Oh, I'm still burned up. I get all emotional about this lecture. I'm still burned up about North Freeway Hyundai. They pulled the bait and switch on me. They put 2 of those cars up there. I called the reserve to test drive both of them. And when I got there, they said, "Oh, sorry, we just sold it. Let's try another car." That is a bait and switch. I put that in my Yelp review too. North Freeway Hyundai, they are on my shit list. Pardon my French, but they are just low on my list of people here. All right. Let's look at some of these consumer agencies. The Justice Department, they're mostly concerned with antitrust and monopolistic activities, like Suddenlink, but apparently they don't care that Suddenlink is not only a monopoly, but is gouging us and not giving us a choice, which is in direct violation of our consumer rights. But the Justice Department, we associate them with unfair business practices. We get the Federal Trade Commission. What does the Federal Trade Commission do? You guys know? Advertising students? They deal with fair credit and advertising, and especially like stuff that goes into your body. When things are dangerous or fraudulent or not as advertised, and you can contact the FTC to have them investigate or chase after them. How about the SEC? What does the SEC do? Security Exchange Commission. Securities Exchange Commission. What do they do?
Regulate what to say?
No, they're not really with safety. Securities Exchange Commission. They go after people like Martha Stewart. You guys remember Martha Stewart, right? Mm-hmm. She went to that Orange is the New Black prison, except she had a pool and a tennis court. SEC supervisors, disclosure among companies of financial earnings and financial stuff. Martha Stewart got nailed on for insider trading. There are different ethics and laws regarding how you can trade stocks and who you can share that information about stocks with. So apparently somebody tipped her off that her stock value was going to drop, and so she dumped it and sold it. And then later they were able to prove that, and they put her in prison. So, Securities Exchange Commission deals with large, big-scale finances, stocks, and bonds, and other financial instruments that can get people in trouble. And that's a very important organization, because what happens whenever, I don't know, some financial instrument, a bank is cooked up, gets out of control, and suddenly credit stops. People can't buy anything. Businesses can't get stuff to run. Can't get credit to get stuff to function. And economies can fall apart. This is why the SEC is so important. Then we come to the FDA. What does the FDA do? Food and Drugs. Food and Drug Administration. Right. We talked about the Consumer Product Safety Commission. Lots of stuff like toys and just kind of general household items like strollers, baby car seats, things like that. Just to make sure our consumer products are safe and they're not full of date rape drugs or uranium or lead. So we've got all these agencies. We've had this consumer movement that started back with the Jungle by Upton Sinclair. Wait, Sinclair? I know what that? Yeah. Upton Sinclair, right. And then it kind of blew up in the 60s and 70s when the baby boomers started being concerned about the environment and their products and things around them. But nowadays we do things a little bit different. We've got internet activism. And so we've got consumer movements all over the internet. And so location, we talked about the internet, social media, make it so that location is no longer critical for having a community. Communities transcend geographic location. You guys remember Occupy Wall Street? Largely facilitated by internet activities, people had a long list of vague demands. That's why it fell apart. It was just kind of a vague listing of things like, well, we want jobs. We don't want CEOs making 1,600 times more than we are, and we're working just as many hours a day for the same company. And supposedly the internet helps keep companies honest. Now, Yelp seems to do that. As I told you guys a little while ago, a lot of these consumer sites will take your money. I mean, it's just like the mugshot industry. I mean, people get mugshots up there and then have to pay to take them down. And so the site sells it to another mugshot. So you get paid twice for people's mugshots. These are a matter of public record. I don't know how I feel about that. It's a great challenge going on. You guys can explore that in your media law or media ethics classes. But internet helps keep a lot of companies honest because it gives us a place to vent and a place to complain about our different issues. And they get taken care of. We'll talk about that more when we get into social media soon. I don't need to tell you guys this, but citizen movements are coordinated. They communicate instantly online. Flash mobs, And what's a flash mob?
People start dancing out of nowhere.
That is possible. Everybody that's connected to the same thing will do like the same thing at one time. Or they'll show up someplace. Or they'll, I think it's been used for criminal activities too. Like everybody show up to the convenience store and steal all the beer and everybody run. And since there'll be like 80 of us, they can't stop us. But for artistic purposes, I think is the general, or for goofy college type things. You guys remember Pepper Spray Cop? Well, tell us about Pepper Spray Cop. Last I checked, he was not committed suicide. But I think he became very reclusive because people were posting his photo over the internet and saying horrible things about him. But you gotta admit, spraying a bunch of unarmed people who are just sitting there protesting something is probably not the most appropriate, most ethical police decision ever made. That was sort of towards the beginning of a rash of anti-police things. You know, we get all these, you get like a posting per day on Facebook of a police officer pulling somebody over and then doing something, illegally searching or doing something to the person that they're not legally allowed to do. You guys remember Chick-fil-A debacle? We didn't talk about that this semester. We talked about it in previous semesters. What happened with Chick-fil-A and same-sex marriage?
The founder said that he supported the traditional family roles.
Yeah. Well, he was on talk radio, which is exactly what the type of things you hear, these anti fill-in-the-blank type of things. The Chick-fil-A people organized through social media and quickly made a big sting about Chick-fil-A. Now, we looked this up later, actually, and Chick-fil-A's earnings went up that quarter that happened.
Oh, because
People are protesting, eating there.
People that started eating at Chick-fil-A during that time, there was a lot of churches, like traditional churches in that nation.
Yeah.
So they feel like they had to go support Chick-fil-A.
Okay. So this, it makes you wonder. If those earnings went up, could this thing have been planned? Could this have been strategic communication?
I don't think so. Because Chick-fil-A closed on Sundays as well.
You think it was a serendipitous thing that the guy got on there and said, no, same-sex marriage is bad for America or whatever? I understand that the Pope's on board with same-sex marriage. You guys heard about that? Or he's on board with equal rights for gay people. All right. PR on the internet. Let's take a look at this. As people, the way civilization is at this moment, we demand to be educated rather than sold on things. It used to be like in the 80s. I mean, advertising and PR has changed over the past since the 80s. In the 90s, it was more about relationship marketing. You're trying to build relationships with people. Now we want to be educated about things so we feel like we're making rational decisions in our consumer purchases. And this is since the dawn of time. We've always had a quest for conversation and interaction. I mean, we are a fairly social species until we get drunk and we get antisocial. But in general, that's one of the things that drive us. Quest for conversation and interaction. Why would we want two-way communication? And this is getting back into one of our principles here. It's because it builds dialogue. What does dialogue help build? Relationships. Exactly. So that's a principle of life. It's not a principle of PR, it's a principle of life. We've also co-evolved with our technology. I mean, we've had fast-moving technology since, I don't know, probably television diffused. But as people, we have co-evolved, and so our expectations of information have changed. And we have a need or a want for real-time performance. I got so angry. When was it? Sunday night. I am in a group, or I'm taking a course myself on online instructorship. and they're training us how to be online instructors. And 2 of our members of the group, I mean, we started on this last Monday. 2 group members didn't even show up till Sunday, and 1 didn't show up till yesterday. And it's like, how can you get projects done when people are just not showing up, you know? And so that is me. I've been influenced by TV and by internet, and I expect instant gratification. We also like a need for customization, and this is reflected in Facebook kind of knowing what kind of things we like. All these cookies on our machines are telling websites what kinds of stuff to advertise to us. And we also like to use things the way we like to use them. This is why I don't like Macs, because Mac wants to control you and how you use the machine. I like PC because I can take the thing apart and do whatever I want to. I can change coding in it. I can set it up however I want to. And that's why I like that. Who uses Macs? He's a Mac person. Why do you guys like Macs? Is it simpler?
Yeah.
There's stuff you can do? Everything's connected.
Like every single one of my devices is the same exact position, so it's not everything.
What do you think about iTunes?
I
think iTunes is a venomous snake. I cannot stand iTunes. And I've never gotten it to work well on a PC. And it's like, to do anything with the iPhone, you got to go through iTunes. You got to use iTunes. I mean, am I understanding it correctly, where iTunes is sort of the centralized thing for all your devices? There may be some user error on my part as well. But anyway, I'm not a fan of Macs. Not even to stay that way. All right. We've only got 3 minutes left. Let's zip through these. Our old school consumer-generated media, email websites, internet relay chats, messaging, all these things. Most of these, we're still using them. Everybody uses these to some extent. But there are 2 major transformations going on in the world of computing and communication. What are they? 2 major transformations that have taken us away from these. Any ideas? No. We're getting, well, what are we doing with that? Text messaging is going the same way as these things. I mean, we're still kind of using ideas behind them, but there are 2 major developments. One of those is social media. Social media is kind of replacing a lot of these types of things. And the other is, this is a huge paradigm shift in terms of technology. One, we got social media, and 2, we've got apps. Apps are beginning to replace browsers for most practical purposes. How many of you guys use browsers on your phone? A few people. How many use? Oh, a lot of people. How many use like an app that does the browsing part for you? All right, watch this. Pay attention to this phenomenon, because we're going towards apps and we're going towards social media, and we're getting away from Windows, Safari, Firefox, all these other things, and going in a different direction. Just take a look real quick at our social networks: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Vine, YouTube. There's a lot of others out there. We'll talk about more of these next week. You guys remember any dead networks? MySpace. What else? Zanga. I never used Zanga. What else? High Five. What else? Tag. I haven't even heard of Tag.
Classmate.
You guys remember Friendster?
Remember that Facebook? That Facebook message? I don't know.
Friendster was a couple years before Facebook was even allowed.
Last week we got
No longer going. I saw the commercials for that. All right, why are they dead? Why are these things dead? Huh? Yeah, some have been replaced. Sometimes, and Friendster died because they took out the fake accounts people made. what happens is you take all that big, it's like if you take an ice cream scooper and scoop out a big chunk of your brain is not going to function as well as it did before you scooped out the brain. And so as a result, well, these connections, other connections start decaying and falling apart.